Okay, everyone. That was Noah Yoshimura DeHaan, and now we have his father, Jonathan DeHaan. Both of them were recommended to us to come to BTG through Nameko Tsuruta, and she spoke very glowingly of you, Jonathan. So please grace us with your knowledge. Everyone,
Gracious.
Jonathan DeHaan.
You're so you're talking about relationships between high school teachers and university teachers and all sorts of people. I hope it's yeah. We can talk about how ridiculous the ivory tower is and what knowledge is and all sorts of things as much as you want. Yeah, I'm going to share a link with you a second. This is what I'm going to be talking about today. So I just put that in the chat. Um, there's it's an article from a journal, and I'm going to use the PDF actually to present, because I'd like to make it easy for people to actually use this and share it. And so if you want to follow along there or get that later, please go ahead. I'm going to share that screen then. Let's see. And jump in to the PDF. Cool. Okay. Do you see the PDF that I'm
Looking good,
sharing?
Jonathan. Yep.
Okay, cool. That's great. Thank you. So, I thank you very much for inviting me to talk. I was really attracted to this conference style because of the connections that everyone seems to be trying to make between different teachers and different contexts. It's something that I definitely struggle with in my teaching. Uh, I have a master's degree, and I've taught at the university level. I've taught at Kaiwa's conversation schools. I've got a PhD. I've worked at universities for almost 20 years now. Um, I do try to think about different contexts with my research. Um, and it's hard. It's really hard to find something that works in all cases, something that doesn't have to be scaled up or scaled down. And something that I want to talk about today is an approach that I'm using at the university, at a high school. I've used it with elementary school students, and I've used it with my own kids. Um, and it can get incredibly theoretical and academic, and it can get really practical and just super basic as well. And I really welcome critique and feedback and questions and um, like blunt aggression or whatever you want to throw at me. I'm happy, because I think it's all valuable, right? Like, I get really angry about education. I get really angry about contextual constraints. So I'm just going to try to present something, and whatever you react to, I'll be really grateful for your feedback. How's that for an introduction? Good enough?
Almost good enough. Yes.
Okay, good, cool. So I am a co-editor of the Ludic Language Pedagogy Journal. Ludic is dealing with games and play. Language deals with second language, first language, literacies, media, power, anything. And pedagogy, right? Teaching, theory, practice, art, science of teaching and learning. And we run an open access journal, which means that nothing's behind a paywall. And we run an open peer review journal, which means that everybody knows everybody in the review process. And so you talk directly to other people. You're not hiding behind blind peer review. And so we're trying to foster open communication. I published an article a couple months ago in the journal, called Teaching Language and Literacy, or anything. I'll talk about the anything later. There's a spoiler, a hint. There's something called taco literacy that's being taught at a university in America that's amazing, which totally fits into this. So taco literacy with games or anything, a good way, simplified here for teachers and students. And the way is called the pedagogy of multiliteracies. And I saw that there's Michelle Bautista, who's talking this afternoon on multimodality. And so this multiliteracies gets into or builds off of multimodality as well. So I hope that fits in well. I'm a professor at the University of Shizuoka in the Faculty of International Relations, which just means there's a bunch of different professors who do a lot of different things. Sometimes that's great, sometimes it's chaotic and horrible, but we seem to be doing okay. Yeah, if you're looking for a good teaching method, and I don't know if teachers are, I think that's something we can talk about, like how, um, yeah, just like the professional development and faculty development and teachers' own development, like, are people looking for a good method? I still am. Like, I've been doing a lot of reading over the summer, just trying to read things and trying to get inspired by different people's teaching approaches. If you're looking for something, if you're interested in games and education, I think this is a really good first stop. Something that I'm going to talk about today. So I've been using games for like about 20 years, but that hasn't always worked. And about 6 years ago, I started a new teaching and research agenda called the game Terrakoya. And so a Terrakoya, a Japanese word for like a temple school in the Edo era, where monks and other people would, it's sort of like a private school, but they were teaching like sort of basic reading, writing, math, and life skills. And so I've adopted that moniker for the work that I'm doing. And you'll see why in a second, like this reading and writing thread. The game Terakoya is inspired by the pedagogy of multiliteracies. And so here's a quick summary. So my students, the GT students, they think about themselves, which I think is often used in communicative language teaching, but I'm doing it in a little bit of a different way. They think about themselves. We play games that connect to their lives. We discuss the games. We spend a lot of time discussing. And then we connect the experiences and ideas to big things in society. Things like racism, prejudice, war, peace, happiness, family, love, sex, all sorts of things. Students use their experiences and ideas to participate. Here's a big word again, participation. So going outside of the classroom, using the internet, connecting with organizations, running charities, all sorts of things via projects. I want to help them become the person they want to be. Right? So we talk a lot about who you are, who you want to be, how can I help you? We use language in meaningful ways. I want students to be free, curious, critical, and creative. Sort of that 21st century stuff, but a little bit more grounded. And the method is really important. If you get anything out of this presentation, like I like to think about these M words, like method, and also materials, and also mediation. We talk about game-based teaching sometimes being delicious, delicious, right? Method, materials, and mediation. So the method of experiencing, discussing, analyzing, and applying is really important. And I'll talk about this in a second, these 4 different steps. Materials are just simple worksheets, simple experiences, and we talk a lot. Like I do a lot of mediation with students, asking questions, prodding them, making them revise things, making them articulate things. So there's a 100-word summary. Any questions so far? Does that make sense?
Don't see it looks, it's great, Jonathan. I don't see any questions so far.
Okay, cool. That's great. Yeah. So like anytime anybody doesn't understand something, I'm happy to slow down or backtrack. So here's some photos. This is what it looks like. We're playing carefully chosen games. Here's Monopoly. This was not chosen for language. It was chosen because this student was interested in childhood development. And so she chose the game because she wanted to know what kind of games children in other countries were playing that had something to do with development or social skills. And so we took Monopoly Junior because of those simple interactions, and it's just a mass market game. And you can see you're taking notes. Like we're playing, but we're also taking notes and collecting data. So we're purposefully playing these games. After that, we use these worksheets to help us discuss ideas. What did you do? How was the game? How did you feel? What do you think you learned? Do you have any evidence for that? How does this connect to bigger things in society? How did you learn the game? What kind of language did you notice? Like this helps us debrief and decompress. Then we do some simple research on connections between the games and language, society, and our lives. So in this case, they're playing the game Concentration or Memory, Shinkei Suijaku, and they're interested in how memory works while playing this game. Like the game is called Memory, but they asked a really basic question. Well, what is memory? And so they sort of got interested. They were recording how they remembered the card placement and what's the difference between short-term memory and long-term memory and things like that. So a bit of like cog-sci for dummies, right? So that was interesting. And then they participate. And so they participate as they like to or need to. So in this case, this is my student Wakana, who played some interesting games about the environment. We discussed the environment. She did some research. She worked at a convenience store and she did some simple tallying of like how many people were bringing their own bags to the shop and how many people were still buying plastic bags. And then based on those experiences, she made her own sort of environmental board game. Um, and then she made a website and she was interviewed by the local newspaper and the university featured her. And so that helped her participate in society. And now she's got a nice job in working with design and ideas, right? So there's a connection between all of this stuff and who they want to be. So that's a quick 4-step, again, snapshot of what we do. Okay. I've written about it sort of really theoretically. I've written about it sort of as a diary, and you can look at those later if you like. But what I'm going to talk about today is just, it's supposed to be really simple. As I said, like this can get really theoretical and really, I mean, wonderfully interesting, but and maybe this connects to the theme of the conference of just the difficulties of knowledge spreading and the difficulties of implementing things. Like I read the pedagogy of multiliteracies. I didn't understand it. Like it's a 20, 30 page paper in the Harvard Educational Review Journal. I had to read it like 5, 10 times to unpack it, to use dictionaries, to look up terms, to do other research. And so I'm trying to translate this into a paper and presentation that's supposed to be really simple. And if it's not simple, then I've failed and I've got to figure it out. So just let me know if it's sort of simplified in your mind by the end of this talk. Okay, so I've got a 1-page overview of the pedagogy of multiliteracies. And this is something that I still use. Like I still refer to this. Like when I try to plan a class, I'm looking at this information and just to make sure that I'm still doing what the pedagogy of multiliteracies is supposed to do. Okay. Just the name, I'll unpack it. So multiliteracies and multimodality, maybe Michelle will talk about this as well. It's Michelle, right? Yeah, Michelle. Like literacy refers to reading and writing, of course, but I like to think about it more in terms of experiencing, understanding, and applying. So literacy could be, okay, so you read a haiku, right? So you read a bunch of haiku, and then you try writing a haiku. You can do that. You can, but there's more to it than just the mechanical aspect of it. This understanding, like, how did the form develop? Why does this simplified poetic form work? How does it work? Who were when did it come about? Who was using it? Why did it gain in popularity? How has the form changed over the hundreds of years, over the centuries? So there's this understanding, which helps with like debriefing and discussions. And if you can experience something and understand something and apply it, you're gaining literacy. And this works with so many different things. Like we can do this with a newspaper article. We can do this with a movie. We can do it with TikTok. We can do it with tweets, right? We can understand why certain tweets work and certain tweets don't. Okay. And it's about the so multiliteracies, because more is better. And there's more of the what, the where, the how, the why, and the who, which I'll get into in a second. First, what? Everything's always changing. Society's changing. We know this. Technologies are changing. Language are changing. There are many realities. This idea of certain texts being canonical, like you must read Whitman, you must read Shakespeare, you must read certain things to be called literate, is a little bit broken, right? It's a power structure. So this idea that society, technology, and language are always changing means that we need to give students tools to understand changing language, right? Twitter didn't exist 20 years ago. What's going to be popping up in 20 years? Will we have a more reduced form, a more extended form, a different modality? let's give students tools to understand how things change so that they can change, right? Meaning is communicated in different modes. Modes mean different ways or purposes or cultures or technologies. And there's these different modalities, right? We can look at photos, sentences, what people say, music. We can move our bodies. Dance is a literacy. Objects, a sculpture, a piece of furniture, food, right? And space, right? A park or a museum atrium. And you can combine these things, right? Like, so for example, a video game combines all of these things and they work together. So if you look at a really nice newspaper article, you've got a heading that's bigger, you've got text, you might have an infographic off to the side. If you're reading a newspaper article online, you might have an interactive simulation, like looking at how housing populations in New York changed based on gentrification, and you can play around with the simulation of that. Meaning is communicated in each of these modes and connected. So my daughter does ballet, and so it's body, sound, and space, right? That's what ballet is. So students can develop these many languages, their first language, their second language, these different literacies, and even a meta language. What's a noun? What's a verb? What's an adjective? This helps. And then you can develop many literacies for different texts. I like comics. I like tweets. I like newspaper articles. I like novels. I like science fiction. And so you can develop these different literacies for different things, for different purposes. And there are academic genres, professional genres, everyday genres, and hobbyist genres. What I read about, modern board games is different what I read about when I read for my job. And so we can develop these literacies in these different ways. Okay. Again, just jump in with questions, just interrupt me. Where is really important too, and maybe this is what we're talking about today. Like, there are different places that students learn, of course, at the university, at the high school, at the elementary level, but there's also personal learning. Like, students learn at home from their siblings, from their parents, from online spaces, from Roblox and TikTok and other things. I think teachers can connect and weave that learning to good effect because it builds on each other. Oh, really? Like, how are you doing at home? Oh, that's okay. Yeah. And then we can connect that to academic and school life and professional life and community life. And then hopefully the learning that we do in school also can connect to online spaces, professional life, and public life, right? Becoming a more informed citizen and populace. So I talked before about those 4 methods or those 4 steps: playing a game, discussing a game, doing some research, and participating. That's the heart of it right here. So experiencing and learning in personal ways, do something, right? Just go for a walk, take a picture, go to the museum, read a book. This gets into school here. This is very social and participatory and experiential. We can learn in school ways now by describing and discussing, using names, using theory, using meta language, being curious and analyzing and connecting experiences critically and functionally. This is the sort of, I think this is what higher education is good at sometimes. And then transformed practice. So applying all this work in creative and critical and appropriate ways. So we like to think about Dewey and Montessori and all these beautiful project-based learning things. That happens in the purple. And then traditional higher, like just conceptual and academic and intellectual work happens in the green. But you don't, it's not one or the other. People argue, like, is it sage on the stage or guide on the side? It's actually both. And if we can, as teachers, do more of both of these things, we can do some pretty amazing things with students. I'll show you. It's really interesting that when students do this transformed practice, like actually writing a tweet or making a haiku or making a choose your own adventure game in Twine, they make something, which means that society changes, but by making something, also the learner changes, right? In order for me to write a good song on my guitar, I become a better guitarist, and that thing gets put out into the world, whether it's just in my bedroom or it's on YouTube. Why should we do all this stuff, right? We can absolutely do all of this stuff with like TOEFL test prep, TOEIC test prep, ACAN. We can do it with anything, but it really, I think the strength of it is when we focus on the transformation of students, teachers, schools, and society. Who are we and who do we want to be? What kind of society do we want? And people can answer different ways, right? We can absolutely have a dictatorial society or an autocratic society or complete anarchy, but it gives teachers and students choice. What do you want to do? And then let's learn in that way. It gives us liberation and freedom from systems of oppression, ideally. Um, Teachers and students learn new ways of teaching and learning and being, this idea of extending repertoires. Like I was pretty good at this stuff and this stuff when I first started teaching. I was not good at this stuff. I had to learn how to unpack experiences, how to help students articulate their knowledge, how to help students ask good questions, how to help students read critically. Other people are really good at this stuff and not as good as this stuff. I think that's where professional development comes into play. It's about making a difference. It's about helping people participate in different ways and weaving between these. You can see connections, right? If we uncover something interesting after playing a game, like a student says, yeah, that game was really fun. The first thing I'll say is, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean fun? What does fun mean to you? And they'll struggle to explain what fun is. Oh, it's fun. Well, like, what do you mean? Like, there are actually different types of fun. Like Marc LeBlanc talks about 8 different types of fun, like narrative and social fun and challenge and aggressive fun and all these sorts of things. And so this, they link, they work together, and then somebody does a cool fun theory project. So teachers are important, students are important, and communities are important. So teachers ask questions, they design tasks, they model things, they push, they draw attention, they guide, require revision. Students are important, right? We don't.
Hang on, everyone. I think we just got another connectivity issue here. Jonathan, can you hear me? There you go. We lost you there for about maybe 10 seconds, Jonathan.
Okay, cool. Do you want me to restart here? Or whatever.
After you said fun.
Yeah, after you said
okay. Okay, after we said fun, thanks. Sorry, we were downloading a bunch of games on the PlayStation 4 this weekend. I think we screwed up our bandwidth, so sorry about that.
No.
Shadows of Mordor is a really important thing that needs to be downloaded. So so fun, yeah. So we can unpack fun, right? We can unpack fun, and students can understand fun more deeply, and then apply that knowledge in interesting ways. So so teachers are important because of all these different things that they do, right? The more we ask questions, the more we model work, the more we share our knowledge, the more we give feedback, the more we require revision, the more students learn. So teachers are important. Students are really important too. Like, who they are is the base for who they want to be in school. And then communities are important too. Like, classrooms are important, but so are families, so are online groups. There are different ways of learning and talking and being that can weave together. Okay, does it work? Yeah, I've got some research articles if you want to look at it. My students' journeys are amazing. They reflect on what they do. And then here's some readings. This is like hardcore mode. This is the original publication is not easy to read, but this one is easier. This one is easier. This one is even easier, and this is how I've applied it. So if you're interested, this is a pretty good short reading list. Okay, so that is a one-page overview of the pedagogy of multiliteracies. It took me 5 or 6 years to be able to compress my understanding into a one-page infographic. And so if somebody wants to ask a question, or share their own experiences of how they've done any of this, like I'd love to hear it. Anything's cool right now. And after this, I'll show a couple quick examples, and I'll give a worksheet, and then I'll be done. If that's what we're going to stop.
Jonathan, we don't have any questions per se in chat, but I have a couple of comments here that I could share with you. Okay, so
Sure.
going back about maybe 15 minutes, Alex Burke comments, assuming gifted and talented, giftedness is as complicated as having a learning difference. The
Yep.
student's operating level makes them feel very different, and they are often very quiet in a regular classroom. Next comment came from Namiko. Applying quotation marks is so important. It empowers our learners to take action in their world and not just be passive participants of society. Going back to Alex, her second comment, it all sounds great to me. I do resonate with wanting to go back to your source and reevaluating experience and progress against the original context.
Yeah.
And I agree with Adam. That was probably the most appropriate excuse I've heard for connectivity problems ever from a guy talking about the importance of games, is that he was using bandwidth to download some games.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's I've got to do that. Okay, I think those comments are wonderful. The gifted question I love, because oh man, like it's so hard to know who students are sometimes. Like if I usually teach classes of about, man, like even like 15 to 30 usually, and my superpower is not names and faces and details. My superpower is being able to eat the same diet food every day. But like by starting with like who the students are, I really understand them and I can help them more. And so what I do is I ask students to carefully go through like about a few days of reflecting on themselves, like their skills, their weaknesses, who they want to become, how they participate online, what are their hobbies, what's been a good experience in school, what's been a bad experience in school for themselves, then for me, so they share them privately with me, so that I understand who those are, and so I get these nice surveys from students. But then I always take them through an exercise where they're going to share with other people. And there's a million ways to do this. But so sometimes I'll have them just put it on it like a graphic organizer on the board, like a table or a concept map of, okay, so like write something about who you are. Well, I like games. Okay, so I'll write games, and then I'll put an arrow and write Jonathan. And right now I'm playing Don't Starve Together, I'm playing Just Cause 3, and I'm playing Drakengard 3, right? And then somebody else will go off of games and write a connection. And so that's a good way to get the ball rolling on personal hobbies. But then I'll also go over to the other side, like, yeah, I'm really interested in education. I'm interested in being a teacher. I'm interested in using games. I like the power of the internet. And so by having students share who they are, you start to build sort of this class conceptualization of who they are as well. And I always stress that like everybody's different. Like everybody has strengths, everybody has weaknesses. And the gifted question is really, and it plays into that, because you do get students who are just amazing at something, but not that good at something else. And then when we go through like playing a game and collecting data and asking questions and doing research projects, it's wonderful to see those students oftentimes working together to either you get like a bunch of gifted kids, I'm using gifted whatever in quotations, but like you get sort of the high level students working together, or you get like the low level students working together, and it's awesome. Like I hate using high and low, but I'm just using it as shorthand. But sometimes you get these beautiful low level questions that end up being the most interesting, like way more interesting than the high level students. Where like, so for example, the memory question, what, like one lower level student said, like, why is it called memory? What is what, this basic question, what is memory? It's a really good question, right? And this is from sort of a low level student who, and it just spun off into this beautiful exploration of memory and cognitive science and redesigning the game. So by having students share who they are, becoming aware, I have students tell each other like, hey, I trust you to listen to me right now. It goes pretty well in my classes. And I'd like to experiment with more at different levels, of course, right? With lower level, like elementary school students, I'd love to do that. I have a connection to a private, what do you call it, like a tutoring, like a juku for kids with mental and emotional problems, and I'd like to try it with them as well. But yeah, I love that question, that comment about giftedness. So yeah. So yeah, you've just got to make me shut up. Otherwise, I'll just talk about this for hours, as Adam knows. So this paper has some good reasons why the pedagogy of multiliteracies is a good method for teaching. I'll leave that up to you. If you're interested, I'll just give one. Like, it values and makes use of curiosity as a fundamental human trait and scholastic driver of learning. If students are curious, that's 90% of the work done. Like, seriously, if you can get them to ask a good question that they care about, what is fun? Why do I like this game? Why do I hate this game? You're off to the races. So, okay. So that's fun stuff. There's some questions about what about, like, is it more effective? Like, okay, so like if I want students to learn 200 words for the TOEIC, am I going to use the pedagogy of multiliteracies? Probably not. I might bring in some parts of it, like let's group some words here, or let's look at some cognates or some prefixes or suffixes, right? But no, like if you would need to drill, like I'm learning Japanese, like I'm studying to take the proficiency test, and I'm going through Bunpro and Wanikani, and I do drills 3 times a day. That's me doing this. This is more effective, right? Drills and lectures and flashcards are better. And so part of my research agenda is trying to figure out how to make the behaviorist stuff, like all the flashcards and rote learning, sort of merge with the more progressive stuff. That's something that I'm still trying to solve. And I've been trying to, I'd love to work with some people on that. What about younger children? Can they handle it? They actually can. So these are the 4 steps: experience, understand, analyze, and apply. So experience, what do you want to do? I ask my kids this, what do you want to do? My daughter says, I want to watch funny kitty videos on YouTube. Cool. Understand, how was it? She's like, yeah, it was really funny. They're really cute. I saw a kitty play with string. Analyze, can you think of other things that this connects to it? She's like, oh yeah, there was that funny show on Netflix that we watched, like Magic for Humans or something. Like, okay, cool. Apply, how could you use this stuff? And then she'll like invent some sort of kitty based magic trick, right? They're not that hard. Like, yeah, they're not that hard. I've done this with like Japanese elementary school kids. Like we played around with the rules of Jenga, and and something I think that people get hung up on is like, well, my students aren't going to be able to do this if I speak English to them. All right, well then speak Japanese. So, right, like there is a strong argument for in multimodality and in multiliteracies of using both languages. Like students should be developing their first language, their second language, other literacies. So yeah, I used Japanese at the Jidokan, and I worked with these kids for 60 minutes. I used Japanese for most of the time, except when we specifically focused on the goal of the English text. Like we looked at the rules of Jenga. They understand the nouns and the verbs. They played around with like pull 1 block versus pull 2 blocks, or each block counts as a point. Yeah, it'll work. There's other things, a lot of other things fit into these things, like project-based learning is basically transform practice. Critical pedagogy, critical race, that gets into critical framing. Connected learning gets into situated practice. So yeah, there's some good stuff there. I'm going to give a really simple example. What time am I done? Oh,
you're actually supposed to have been done already, I think.
Cool. I'll finish in 5 minutes. That's no problem.
Cool,
is that good? Five minutes? 5 minutes is good?
Absolutely.
Okay, so a super simple example. And this sets up, hold on. This sets up this. Like if you want to try, here is a worksheet that I'm going to give you. You can go to the document, take it, and here you go. Like do something, discuss it, ask a question, apply what you've learned. Here's what you say as a teacher. There's a worksheet right here. Okay, so that's the end. That's the stopping point of the talk. So if you want to try it, you can do that. And if you want to do it in 15 minutes or 10 minutes, you can. here's an example. So one of my students came to my office. We were talking about this. And I was like, okay, cool. Let me give you an example. And so this was just totally off the cuff. I'm like, okay, so who am I? I like Metal Gear. So I went to the Metal Gear Konami Twitter and I found this, right? There was just an anniversary tweet and I didn't know this grammar. Okay. Even though I'm using this, I hadn't been exposed to this. I copied and pasted the text and I was like, oh, cool. It's the passive voice. That's really interesting. And my Japanese student helped me read the kanji. And so we thought for a second, like, what does this connect to, right? How do I use this? How do I use the passive? I'm like, okay, well, I use it all the time in academic writing because I use about something being done, right? You focus on the thing, not the person. Oh, right. And recently, I just had uploaded my 4th year's thesis to our lab website. So how could I use it? Okay, cool. I tweeted, right? My 4th year students' graduation thesis have been published on our Game Lab website, and I used the passive voice. And my student, I made a typing error, so she checked it, and she helped me put the right verb in front of the grammar, which is multimodal. It goes through all the steps in 15 minutes. It's linguistically oriented. It's personally oriented because it's about Metal Gear, so that's great. My student helped me read, so that there's the role of the teacher or a gifted student or a peer. You think about what you're doing, and then you can tweet using the grammar, right, from input to output and understanding in 15 minutes. And that's what the worksheet is. Okay. And it can be with anything. Watch Titanic, watch a Marvel movie, or watch funny kitty videos, or go clean up garbage in the park, right? All this kind of stuff. If you want a longer example, I got some research money to run a 5-day game camp where high school students came in, where we played games, right? Like different board games and English games and video games. We analyzed them. We looked at the games. We looked at their advertisements. We looked at industry interviews. We talked about stories. We talked about genres. Students dove into content rating systems like the CERO and the ESRB. They created a company logo. They made catch copy. They analyzed interviews. They made their own game. They made their own advertisement. They made their own English interview for their game. And then we held a public event at the university where their parents and teachers and friends came in, played their game. They gave an interview, and these were released online. That was 5 days, which is totally pedagogy multiliteracies based, totally like media literacy based. Yeah, this is a cool project too. But it doesn't have to be that long, right? Like it can be this long, or it can be with a game. It can be with Monopoly or concentration or Genshin Impact or whatever you want to, funny TikTok videos, funny memes. And there it is. So if you want to try it, there's a worksheet. Give it a try. I'm happy to help. If you want to look at some other things, there's some other people who are doing things in PedML. There's other literacies. So there's fashion literacy, culture literacy, history literacy, happiness, like random acts of kindness is something that I'm messing around with recently, which is totally literacy based. Taco literacy is amazing, right? They go out to a restaurant, they experience different tacos, they understand where the different ingredients come from, how it developed, and then they actually make their own tacos. Different things you can do. Go for a walk in the park. Look at a nice clump of moss or pick up a piece of garbage on the street. These are really interesting experiences, different participatory projects. How I talk to my students, how they use the diary. Some students are using it more visually based, right? Like different experiences, discussions, analyses, and applications, right? They're doing that. How long does it take? Anywhere from 15 minutes to 15 years. Some different advice. Yeah. Yeah. And I like my Bloody Valentine. Yeah, there's the paper. So it's on that thing on the link that I shared in chat, and it's there. I really hope it's simplified somehow, or makes some sense, because I really do think it's a nice bridge between sort of these university professors thinking about theory and cutting edge pedagogy and data, and thinking about how to really make a difference in the lives of our students, like tomorrow. I really do think it has the potential to do that. I really do. So thank you. Thanks a lot. Happy to field critiques. anything.
Want to invite everyone, if you would like to open up your cameras at least to show a round of applause for Jonathan DeHaan.
Thank you. Thanks.
And we'll be fielding questions now because the next presentation doesn't come on really until about 10:30, so we still have some time.
Hey, so you lied. That's nice. I was supposed
I
to be
did.
done.
I lied. I lied.
Okay,
I lied.
good, good.
I do that for a living.
I appreciate lying. Let's unpack that.
Pretty much every single thing that I say on OTJ is untruthful.
Alex, are you beekeeping? Oh my! I need a bee.
No, I'm in my garden and I'm weeding with
Yeah.
my husband because
Mosquito
I've
keeping.
been,
Is it mosquitoes or is it?
procrastinating.
Is it,
Yeah,
is it mosquitoes or
mosquitoes.
is it, oh, we have like
We're
at
finally
our-
working on the garden. Yeah.
we have a garden too, and we've got like all these osusume bachi who are making a nest, like these awesome.
Ooh.
Like,
Oh.
yeah, so we've got
but
yeah. we got
yeah,
to figure out that.
dangerous.
That's-
you can actually put up a paper bag. You get a brown paper bag and you twist it into the right shape and hang it, and they
But-
won't come.
See, but like, what month do you do that? Because that's what we're trying to figure out. Like, do you do it over the
you do
winter or?
No, you do it before as soon as the weather hits about 17, 18 degrees.
Okay.
You do it.
See?
So you just hang these things up. And the other thing I heard from
Yeah.
Lauren Lansbury was you hang dragonfly models. You buy them off somewhere. Dragonflies, you hang them up, and that scares
Yeah.
them away because they're a predator.
That's amazing. Okay. See,
Yeah.
this is here we go. Literacy, right? Bee
Yeah,
literacy.
Yeah.
Totally.
Pedagogy of nest destruction. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I got stung twice last fall.
Ooh,
So
by a murder hornet?
not by a murder hornet, by a different type of bee. We've got like 5 different types of bees at the
Okay,
cabin. So
okay, that's
Yeah.
Great.
good.
Love it.
Yeah.
So happy
Yeah.
about the bees.
Oh, you love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alex, while you have your microphone open, would you like to address your last comment on giftedness,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
interview
Yeah.
tests and such?
Yep. I'm a huge fan of interview tests, and the reason I am is because you will, like in a mainstream classroom, you're going to have students who are possibly gifted learning disabled, which means they might have ADHD or
right.
they might have dyslexia, and they've never been able to demonstrate their ability. And that's why the games are so important, because the games are something that does connect those students in, or making videos. But in particular, in interview tests, the high level students and the super high ones, will often become way too scared to speak.
Yeah.
And they stammer and they can't perform. And you have to evaluate them on their performance, not what you know they can do. But if you get a group of 3 students and you give them a task to do,
Yep.
a collaborative task,
Yep.
that unlocks all of them. You just say, you just get them to talk, and you give them 2 minutes or whatever, or 3 minutes to talk in a group, and all of those students will speak. All of those students can demonstrate mastery. All of those students can get a score. Whereas
That's right.
if you've got a 50 or 100% test, and it's a written test, some of those
Yep.
students are going to score really lowly, and
Yeah.
the super high level kids are just as likely to throw a sickie, because
Yep.
their guts are churning about whether or not they're going to be found out to be stupid.
See, that's so
because
interesting, because you
They
can actually
do believe they're stupid.
Yeah. because you can also tell them and help them ask questions to support each other. So if they see that
Yes.
somebody else is having trouble, they can say, like, could you say more about that? Or
tell me
is there an
more.
ex- Tell me more. Tell
It's
me
so
more. Tell me
simple.
more. It's fine.
So
Tell me
simple.
more. What do you
The
mean?
most important.
So what?
Yeah, that's it. So what? Tell me more. Those are really, really important
Yeah.
things to
Who
teach
cares?
students. But
Yeah, exactly.
putting the students into the group together gives them a way to perform, and they sort of forget about you,
That's right.
and they can actually perform well, and
That's
they
right.
will perform well.
Yeah, like makes you reconsider group work a lot, I think, right? Like a lot of
Yes.
CLT communicative stuff, the group work is just meaningless. It's just empty babble, right? But if you can give them a meaningful task and help them to actually support each other, give them roles, it just redefines the classroom, reconceptualizes it.
And getting them to use media in their game, in their thing,
Yeah.
like to get them to photograph stuff around their school environment
Totally.
or something. They will find you interesting places to talk about, and they
That's
know
right.
things about that you have never heard of. So
Yeah, and I hope that I
um,
didn't hype. I tried to not to hype games at all, because
oh no, I love games.
I do too. I do too, and I think about them really critically. But and we can talk about like word games or board games or card games or video games or playground games or role-playing games or whatever, right? But yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack in terms of just whatever they're doing is valuable. Like we don't have to find the best game. Like whatever your students are playing is the best game. If they're playing Candy Crush, and I hate Candy Crush, but if they're playing Candy Crush and they like it, we're going to talk about it in class, right?
Yep.
So
yep. And if you say, is so and so, if you're teaching a verb and you're saying, is so and so playing Candy Crush, every head will go up.
Yeah.
Or whatever the current game is, every student will stop and they will look at you because you've done something that's relevant to them.
Well, it's like asking them if they're playing a game, or if they've seen the new season of Castlevania, or if they've, like whatever it is, right? Like just ask a real question. Yeah. Cool. Hi, Al. Where are you, Alex?
I'm in Gifu. I've put my email in the chat for anybody who wants to talk about this stuff. Okay. Nice to meet you.
Good luck with the mosquitoes.
Good job with the kid wrangling.
Thanks.
Does anyone else want to chime in with a question? We have maybe 2 or 3 more minutes or so before we probably have to come in. Okay, Namiko.
Thank you so much. It was a very different presentation from the one that I attended. So I learned so much more.
Thanks.
I love the multi-literacy framework. And I was wondering, especially for professional development for teachers, that also would work, wouldn't it?
I think so.
And
For sure. Yeah. Like,
I feel like that's the kind of training that's lacking.
Because it's very much just like top-down didactic. Here's death by PowerPoint. Like it doesn't hit any of those modes, right? It's not an experience. It's not conceptual. It's not curiosity driven, and it's not applicatory, right? So like, So have teachers try a role play, right? And then unpack it, and then ask a critical question about their own practice, and then see if they can apply one thing in their classroom on Tuesday. That's it. I think we've done a better job than death by PowerPoint, which I'm sick of.
Yeah, I attended another session where the professor, he was saying that like he actually does all the activities that he assigns his students.
Oh yeah.
And I actually thought like, yeah, we all should be doing that and teachers too, whenever they come up with an idea that they can run it in their head, but they should actually be playing it with other teachers to see about it too. Yeah,
I think so. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course.
Michelle.
Yeah, sorry. I'm kind of late, so I'm still in the Philippines, an hour late. So is it okay if I can have a copy of your material, because I'm really interested in this?
Yeah. So this is thank you. Yeah, so like this was designed with that question in mind, because I want to share things. So if you go to the link in the chat, and I hope it's still
Michelle, if you go to OTJ and the live stream itself, the first comment at the very top is Adam's pasting of Jonathan's link.
And the let's see, on the second page, so in that 100-word summary, I share all the games that I usually use, all the projects that my students do, and my materials. So everything is there. I mean, and be careful what you ask for, because some of them are just 150 pages long. Sorry. Literally like my students know that they're gonna use a lot of Google Docs, and they're gonna build out a 200-page portfolio. Hey, Adam, I used the word portfolio. Of stuff, right? I know, whatever, they're gonna put it in. Okay, let's call it a garbage bin, right? No, that's not nice. We'll call it a dump truck, right? They're gonna build out a general box. Exactly.
So we're going down from portfolio now.
Yeah. Dump truck. I like dump trucks. Yep. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And if you can't access something, just hit me up through email or whatever, and I'll give you access to everything, and I'll connect with you and walk you through. And that's the offer, right? Like this isn't the end. Like I'd love to keep working with people. So if anybody's curious about anything, wants to hang out, do another Zoom session, I'll share more materials or help you teach a class or whatever.
Speaking
Thank you
of
so much.
speaking of Zoom sessions, Jonathan, thank you, Michelle. Speaking of
Mhm.
Zoom sessions, Jonathan, I would like to invite you to do an entire episode of OTJ TV with us, if you wouldn't mind.
Cool. Yeah, sure.
Okay, I will be in touch.
Thanks. That's very
Thank
nice of you
you.
to ask.
No.
Yeah.
Hey, can you get your kid to come with you? That would be awesome.
We want both of them. They're both pretty awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know you had two. That's fantastic. Bring 'em up.
My daughter is really developing her swearing literacy. So
Oh, but then she's got a couple things to learn from me and the Aussie in the audience.
she learned the second meaning of cocktail yesterday. So she learned.
I'm just gonna slap myself before I say anything.
No. Like that. Yeah.
I have one quick question in the Facebook chat for you, Jonathan. I see you have Monopoly Junior. I use it
do.
too. It's a language-rich activity and so fun. From Teresa Cannonberg.
Yeah, I have lots of. I don't know. Again, there's like yeah, Monopoly is good. What's really interesting, if you want to really mess around with it, is like I don't even know if you can do it. Depends on your learner, but there's a teacher who I follow on Twitter who designs different social systems using Monopoly. So capitalist Monopoly, communist Monopoly, anarchy Monopoly, yeah, 1%er Monopoly. So
Isn't that all Monopoly?
I know, right? Well, that's
Monopoly
it.
was supposed to like make fun of all. Well, maybe not the communists, but
Yeah. Well, it was originally developed by a woman, and it was about the housing ridiculousness in New York City, right? And so it was originally supposed to be a critique, and then
right.
it was developed into a mass market game where we celebrate
Capitalism.
capitalism. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, there you go, Jonathan. Any final comments before we let you go? Finally,
I'm really happy to work with anybody.
Right.
I wonder if we're going to get into talking about this at some point in the afternoon, but it's just like it's so hard to collaborate. It really is, right? It's hard to meet wonderful people and to do things, and I don't know how to start, but I'm happy to help you do something for 5 minutes, and that's so whatever I can do, just let me know.
well, I'm going to
happy
give
to
you that platform on OTJ TV to make that call
Cool.
to everyone. So
Cool. Thank
and,
you.